this is Karridi with Art by Karridi. We're going to do a Santa with his legs going down the Chimney Rock tutorial. This one's a lot of fun, so I'm excited about this. First thing we need to do is paint the background. Now if you'll see on this, it's a little bit lighter in the middle. And that just kind of helps his legs kind of pop out a little bit more. It gives your eye a place to focus. So I'm going to use a round tip, or this is not round tip. I'm going to use a flat tip brush. And I'm going to go with some dark blue around the edges. Now you'll see that I do this a lot. I tend to do shading and blending on my backgrounds, and if you guys start doing that, that's a really good way to practice your shading. So now I'm going to take that same blue, mixing a little bit of white in it, making kind of a lighter blue, and then as I'm brushing it on, my dark blue is still wet, and I'm just kind of blending the two colors together. Alright, and since I still have blue on my paintbrush, I'm just going to pick up some white, and I'm going to start on the middle because that blue from the brush is going to get into that white as I'm painting it on. And then I just kind of, with light strokes, just kind of blend that in to the darker blue that's around it. And grab a little bit more white. And I don't know if you noticed when I held up the brush, but when I'm getting white, I'm just getting it on one side. And then the blue color that's already on my brush is on the other side still. Okay, and then when I want to blend it, I'll turn my brush over so the white side is up. And it just kind of helps blend some of that around. Now we've got a spot over here where it got a little lighter than I want, so I'm going to pick up some of that darker blue, again just on one side, and I go over that again and kind of blend it back up into the lighter color. Alright, so that's our background. Once that's dry, we'll want to draw Santa's legs and the chimney on there. I did make another template. Heard some of you really like those templates, and it's not a big deal for me to make them. So we'll just keep adding those in the description of the videos. So just decide what direction you want your rock to go. Place the template on top and trace around it. Now another way you could do the templates if you don't want to cut them out and trace them is you could use a little bit of tracing paper behind it. Anyway, I'll find it. I'll add a link in the description below. But where you can just draw on top and then it puts an image, you know, whatever you drew onto the rock. Anyway, since we're painting this with, you know, the red and the white and everything, I'm going to block all of this in the outline of the image. I'm going to block all of that in with white paint so that the colors will look better. So again, I'm just using a flat brush, not a very big one, maybe about, oh, I don't know, 1/2 centimeter wide. No. Yeah, maybe about 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to get some white paint. I'll probably do 2 coats of this white. And with how this design goes, if you have a longer rock, you can just make more bricks. So you just take the bricks kind of down off the end of the rock, like this. Alright, and then I'll let that dry, and then I'll probably do a second coat of white, especially on the legs where we're going to paint the red. Once that is dry, I want to go back in and add some of my details here. Alright, so we've got the top of the chimney. I'm going to draw a line across there, and then there's another little line that comes just above that. And then we have our bricks. And then I want to draw that snow in. Alright, so I'm going to choose a small round brush. I'm going to start filling in some of the red for his legs. I am going to do 2 coats of red on his legs. So the second coat is where I'm going to do my shading. This first coat, I'm just blocking in the color. And I'm doing that because red tends to be a more translucent color, so it's more likely that you would need more than one coat with a color like red. Now I'm going to do the bricks, and I'm going to do that just by adding a little bit of brown to my red and making it kind of a brick color. So I'm just going to paint in my bricks, leaving little spaces where I'm going to go back and put in the mortar. You could easily just paint all of this just a solid brick color, and then go back in with your lines. But I just want to leave those spaces just so I know where I want to put my shading. It's really about personal preference, whether you do a solid fill on this area and then go back in with your lines, or if you do it the way I'm doing it. Another way you could do this is you could paint the whole thing gray first, the whole bottom part gray, and then you could paint your individual bricks on top of that. I'm probably picking the most time-consuming way to do it. And with the red of these bricks, I'm not super concerned about if parts of it are slightly translucent. Bricks are not a smooth surface. So I've actually got some pits in this rock. Not worried about that. Not worried about darker spots and lighter spots as I'm painting the bricks. Because, you know, it just gives a little bit more texture and dimension to your bricks, gives a little more overall character. Alright, now I'm going to mix up a light gray, or kind of a medium gray, just mixing some black and white together. Alright, and I'm going to come in here and just start adding the top of my chimney. If you like my tutorials, make sure you like them and share them and subscribe to our channel so that we can continue making more tutorials. It helps us out if you have if you share these with your friends and you subscribe. That way we can get more views, and it'll help us out with making more tutorials. There's also all the products that I use. We link down below. Those are associate links. And so if you buy products through those links, it helps us out, which also we get a little bit of money back from that without it costing you anything at all. It doesn't cost you any more to use an associate link, and that just that helps us out to be able to make more videos for you. So I'm just putting in my mortar here. It doesn't have to be, you know, perfectly straight exact lines. It can have little bits of wobbles and things in your line because mortar just is not perfect. If you did this super ruler straight and had perfectly sized lines, then it would make the bricks look a lot more fake. So having imperfections in your mortar can actually help it to look a little bit more real. So this would be a really good area to practice, you know, your thin brush lines, thin brush strokes. If you normally do detailing with a pen, this might be an area where you want to do it with a brush just for that extra practice. Now I'm going to go in. I've still got gray on my brush. I just picked up a little bit of white, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in some highlights here. Just to kind of give the rock a little bit more of that detailed look, a little more fun. If your highlights start getting a little too gray, just pick up a little bit more white. Don't put very much on your brush. Just a little bit will do ya. And then I'm just going to outline this section with the bricks. I'm going to do a white outline on the edge. Again, I don't want to be super exact with my line. If it has a little flaw to it, it's okay because it's more of a rustic area. If I did a super straight, perfect line here, it would look a little off. If you have a rock, I don't know if you can see that on this rock, it's kind of textured on the bottom and smoother on the top. That works great for this kind of a look. It just adds a little bit more dimension to the brick part and the chimney part. All right, now I'm gonna get a clean brush. This is just a little, it's a flat beveled brush. You can use just about any smaller brush. And I'm gonna put in my white. I don't want any other paint on here because I want this part to be white. And I'm doing this paint a little bit thicker, using kind of a swirly motion as I put it on. Because then in person, it's got a little bit of texture to that white. And I'm going to do the same thing here because this is my snow. Now with a thicker paint application to get that texture in there, you are going to have to make sure to allow for more drying time. You wouldn't want to turn this upside down to write on the back, probably for a day or two at least. If you want to be super safe, wait a week, depending on how thick you make it. So sometimes for rocks like this, it might work better to write your information on the back first and go ahead and seal the back of the rock, and then do the front of the rock. That way you don't have to worry about flipping it over. But you want to make sure that this is nice and dry before you seal the rock. So, you know, if you're going to do that thicker application of paint in here, you might want to wait a day or two or even a week to seal the rock, because we don't want to end up ruining it by having wet paint under there. It can make the image come off if wetness is trapped underneath the sealer. All right, now I'm going to use some black. Just going to use my gray brush again. So just a little round brush. And I'm going to do his shoes. I'm going to come back in with some white highlights later. So I'm just going to do these a solid black. Alright, and now I'm going to just get just a very small amount of black on my brush, and I'm going to do a little bit of detail, add a little bit of interest to my bricks. And I want them to still be kind of rough looking, so I'm just doing kind of a rough outline on part of the brick. I'm not going to go the whole way around. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the top of the chimney. I'm going to do a little bit of an outline on the side. Now again, if this is a part that you're not real comfortable with, you know, you can do that with a pen or a paint marker. Alright, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the rest of my red. I'm going to finish off that red on his legs. They're not good enough yet. Alright, so I am just putting a really quick little coat of red on there. Just real thin, quick little coat. That way I can work with a wet base for some highlighting or shading. So I picked up a little bit of the brick red that I used on the bricks. And I'm just gonna put a little bit of that in here, just kind of on the edges of his legs. Oops, I picked up a little white. That's okay. And I'm just gonna, I don't have very much paint on my brush at all. And I'm just blending that together. Make it just a little bit more. But you see there? I don't know if you can see that or not. You just have, I mean, there's almost nothing on the brush. I'm just getting such a tiny amount of paint here. With reds, you want to be really careful when you're adding color. You just added some brown to it. You don't want to gray it out. And they can, I don't know, reds can kind of go the wrong way kind of quick. And then I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit of white and work with the red. Oops. work with the red that's already on my brush and just do a little bit of a highlight here in the middle. Don't want to turn this pink. So I'm just doing real light. I mean, this is practically a dry brush. And I just wipe it off on my palette to make sure that it's, there's really not much on there. All right, I'm going to pick my black back up. Excuse me. And I'm going to outline the edges of his legs. And then I'm going to do just a couple kind of contour marks just to add a little bit more character. Do the same thing over here. And if you'll notice, I'm purposefully doing the outlining on the white areas and waiting on that as long as I can to give that a little bit more time to dry. You might want to wait until it's completely dry, but I don't have the next stage of this rock ready where I can wait until it's just completely dry without spending a lot of time here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that when it's still slightly damp, but I want those edges to be as dry as I can get them. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the lighter color highlights on the boots. So you do a little highlight at the toe, and do one right in here, one at the back of the boot, and then one just where that separation is for the heel. If you're wondering, I always paint a rock or two before I do the videos, so I know what I want to paint, how I want it to look. Alright, I'm going to do a light highlight here. So I'm just adding a little bit of white to his legs. Alright, and now I'm going to go and put the black part on my white areas here. So I'm going to do just a real rough outline here. I don't want to outline completely. I want it to be rough, just to kind of add a little bit more detail and separation to the snow. This really kind of helps it kind of show up on the rock a little better, but I don't want it to be a solid outline. Anytime I'm getting up into the thicker part of the snow, I end up picking up a little bit of white on my brush. And so then I just wipe it off before I go back in. Wipe it off, pick up more black, go back in, work on it some more. And then I'm going to do the same kind of outlining up here where I don't want a completely solid line. Alright, now I'm going to add the falling snow. I'm just going to use this little dotting tool. This is a manicure tool. It's two-sided, so it's got a bigger end and then a smaller end. And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to put some bigger dots first. This actually, I'm using a thicker paint. Dots actually work better with the thinner craft paint. So if you have different kinds of paint, you'll actually find that it works better to dot with the thin. I'm going to add a few dots intentionally into where my snow's coming down so it looks like it's kind of dripping a little bit. If you do multiple dots each time you load the dotting tool with paint, you will notice that they get a little bit smaller as you go. Just with less paint on there, it doesn't give you as big a dot. And then I'm going to use the smaller end too. I just want multiple sizes to my dots because it gives it a little bit more interest than just having a single size. You know, so snowflakes aren't all the same size when they fall. Have you all used dotting tools? They're so much fun. They are not a big investment. You can actually make them out of just about anything. The one I'm using is a manicure tool. You can use a toothpick, you can use the end of a paintbrush, a bobby pin, just about anything. There's just something fun about dots of paint. And there we have it. You have Santa's legs sticking out of a chimney. You'll notice there are some differences in these. Yeah, the main difference is the background color. It's a different blue, and then I used a slightly different red for parts of that. But you know, the thing with art is that no two rocks are exactly the same, and they're all unique. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Thank you for watching this tutorial by Art by Karridi. Please like, share, and subscribe to see new tutorials each week.